Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about a life far removed from your plush sofa and the glowing screen you're watching this on. Forget the romanticized tales of valiant knights and fair maidens. We're stripping away the myth to confront the unvarnished truth of existence for the vast majority of people during the Middle Ages. We're going to dive headfirst into the brutal, unyielding daily grind of a medieval peasant, a life where every sunrise brought a fresh battle against hunger, cold, and a relentless earth. Before we really sink into this world, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below with your location and the current time. It helps us know where you're tuning in from. All right, find that cozy spot, pull a blanket tight around you, and let's journey back to a world where comfort was a luxury beyond imagination, and survival was the only goal.
You stir, not to the gentle chime of an alarm or the soft glow of a bedside lamp, but to a profound, bone-deep chill that has settled into your very marrow. The air within your small one-room hovel is thick with the acrid scent of stale wood smoke, damp earth and unwashed bodies, your own included. Your eyes, still heavy with sleep, flutter open, struggling to penetrate the oppressive darkness that presses in from every corner. There are no windows, merely a small, unglazed opening high on one wall, often stuffed with straw or a piece of hide, which offers no true illumination, only a faint, diffused grayness that hints at the pre-dawn world outside. You shiver, pulling the rough, woven blanket, a coarse affair of wool, scratchy against your skin, tighter around your shoulders. It offers little real warmth, having long since lost its insulating properties to countless nights of damp and decay. The straw beneath you, shared with your wife and children, and perhaps even a pig or a few chickens huddling close for mutual warmth, rustles and crackles with every movement, a symphony of discomfort. Your bed is not a bed at all, but a heap of straw, perhaps contained within a rough wooden frame, but more often just a depression in the earth floor, covered with your single, precious blanket. The cold from the ground seeps through, a constant, insidious adversary. You push yourself up, your joints protesting with a series of low aches and groans. You are young, perhaps in your mid-20s, but your body already feels decades older, bearing the cumulative weight of endless toil and meager sustenance. Your bare feet meet the packed dirt floor, sending a jolt of icy shock up your legs. The floor is perpetually cold, perpetually damp, a testament to the earth it was carved from. You can feel the small lumps and hollows beneath your soles, a map of the uneven terrain within your own home. The air is so frigid that your breath plumes before your face, a ghostly vapor in the gloom. You rub your arms, trying to coax some warmth into your numbed fingers, but it feels like a futile effort. The fire, which was painstakingly banked last night, has long since died down to a few sullen embers, barely visible as tiny, flickering orange points in the ash-filled hearth that dominates the center of your dwelling. It is the heart of your home, the source of any warmth or cooked food, and its near extinction signifies the beginning of another cold, laborious day. The first task, a silent imperative, is to rekindle that fire. You fumble in the dark, your fingers brushing against the rough, splintered wood of a shelf where a small tinderbox is kept. The flint and steel are cold to the touch. The tinder, dried moss, bits of bark, some shredded linen, feels brittle. With a practiced motion born of necessity and countless repetitions, you strike the steel against the flint. There's a harsh, metallic rasp, and a shower of sparks erupts, scattering briefly before mostly winking out. You try again and again, the The rhythmic clink-scrape flicker, breaking the deep silence of the pre-dawn. Your concentration is absolute. Failure to get a spark means a cold meal, or no meal at all, and a day begun with even greater discomfort. Finally, a spark catches on the tinder, a tiny, fragile ember that begins to glow a delicate orange. You cup your hands around it, bringing it carefully to your mouth and blowing gently, steadily, coaxing the life into it. The smell of burning tinder, dry and slightly acrid, fills your nostrils. A comforting sign of success. You add small, dry twigs, carefully gathered from the forest, another taxing chore, watching as the flame takes hold. Hesitant at first, then growing stronger, licking at the kindling. Then come the larger logs, slow to catch, but promising more sustained heat. The smoke, thick and pungent, billows upwards, seeking the smoke hole in the thatch roof, a crude, open vent that lets out some, but by no means all, of the fumes. Your eyes begin to water, a familiar stinging sensation, and you cough, a dry, hacking sound that echoes slightly in the small space. Your lungs are accustomed to the constant irritation, but it's a harsh way to begin the day, every day. As the fire grudgingly grows, casting dancing shadows on the Waterland orb walls, you can vaguely make out the shapes of your family still asleep, huddled together, their breathing shallow and rhythmic. You envy their brief respite, knowing that soon you will have to rouse them to dot your stomach clenches. A hollow ache that has been your constant companion for as long as you can remember. Hunger is not merely an absence of food. It is a dull, persistent pain, a low thrumming in your belly that colors every thought, every action. It is a reminder of the fragility of your existence, of your utter dependence on the land and the whims of nature. You glance towards the small, rough-hewn wooden chest in the corner where your meager food stores are kept. A small lump of last night's stale bread, perhaps a handful of oats for gruel. It's not much, but it's something. Every morsel is precious, every calorie accounted for, because you know that today, like yesterday, you will burn through every bit of energy you consume, and then some, just to survive. You pull on your clothes, the same rough wool tunic and breeches you wore yesterday and the day before. They are coarse, ill-fitting, and provide little defense against the cold. The fabric is stiff, almost board-like in its thickness, and it scratches your skin as you move. There's no concept of separate day clothes and night clothes here. You wear what you have until it falls apart, and then you patch it with whatever scraps you can find. The smell of smoke and old sweat clings to them, a permanent fixture. There's no washing these clothes regularly. Water is too precious, and the effort too great. Besides, what's the point? They'd just get dirty again the moment you stepped outside. Your shoes, if you even have them, are likely rough leather turnovers, offering minimal protection from the elements, often caked with mud and already beginning to rot. More often, you rely on bare feet, tough and calloused, to carry you over the frozen earth. You stumble outside for a moment, the icy air a sharp slap to your face, carrying a bucket to the small, frozen stream nearby, or perhaps the communal well. The water is frigid, numbing your hands as you draw it, the heavy wooden bucket protesting with creaks and groans. This water will be for drinking, for cooking, for the minimal washing your family will undertake. You clutch the bucket handle, your knuckles white, and begin the walk back, your eyes scanning the greying horizon, noting the first faint blush of dawn. It promises another day of unrelenting labor, another day where your body will be pushed to its limits, Another day where the spectre of hunger is never far from your mind. As you return to the smoky warmth of your hut, the thought crosses your mind, as it does every morning. Another day has begun, and you are, for now, still alive. The enormity of this simple fact, the constant, silent battle for bare existence, settles over you with the weight of the rough blanket you just discarded. The fire, now a more robust, crackling entity, offers a meager comfort, but your stomach's protest is far louder than the warmth. You emptied the bucket of water into a large iron pot suspended over the flames, the cold liquid hissing as it meets the rising heat. This pot is one of your most valuable possessions, a vessel of survival, used for everything from boiling water to cooking the simplest meals. The water begins to warm, and you reach for the small sack of oats, or perhaps barley, your fingers feeling the rough texture of the grains through the coarse fabric. There is no refined flour here, no delicate pastries or sweet fruits. Your diet is dominated by the earth's most resilient offerings, the ones that can withstand the unpredictable medieval climate and the rapacious demands of your feudal lord. You measure out a small handful of grain, each individual kernel a tiny, potent promise of energy. You know precisely how much you can spare for this morning's meal, balancing the immediate need for sustenance against the chilling fear of running out entirely before the next harvest. This isn't just breakfast. It's a strategic allocation of resources, a daily gamble against starvation. As the water simmers, you slowly pour in the grain, stirring constantly with a rough wooden spoon. The mixture begins to thicken, transforming into a grey, unappetizing gruel. Its aroma, earthy, a little sour, but profoundly reassuring, filling the small hovel. This is your breakfast, your children's breakfast, your wife's breakfast. It is the fuel that must propel you through hours of back-breaking labor. Your wife, roused by the growing warmth and the scent of the gruel, stirs beside you. Her face, etched with the same weariness that shadows your own, is still creased from sleep. She coughs, a dry, rattling sound from the smoke-filled air, and slowly gets up. Her movements are as deliberate and heavy as yours, her body as accustomed to aches and pains. She will help prepare the meager meal, but her primary tasks for the day lie within the hovel, or perhaps tending the small kitchen garden if the season permits, or gathering firewood or mending clothes. Her labor is as ceaseless and vital as yours, though often less visible in the fields. The children, sensing food, begin to stir as well, their small, thin bodies uncurling from the shared straw, their eyes wide and still clouded with sleep. Fix immediately on the pot over the fire, their young faces already marked by a hunger that seems almost innate. You dish out the gruel into rough wooden bowls, or perhaps even scooped directly onto a thick, stale piece of bread if you are lucky enough to have it. There are no individual portions to choose from. Each person receives what they need, or rather, what can be spared. You watch as your children devour their portions, their spoons scraping against the wood with a desperate urgency, as if fearing the food will disappear before they can finish. Their small hands tremble slightly, their faces smudged with ash and dirt, but their focus is entirely on the food. You remind them, gently but firmly, not to eat too quickly, to savor each mouthful, to let it settle. But their bodies, driven by an instinctual need, rarely listen. You eat your own gruel slowly, savoring the warmth, the faint taste of the grain, the filling sensation in your stomach, however temporary. There's no salt to season it, no butter, no herbs, just the raw, unadorned taste of boiled grain. It's monotonous, yes, but it's life. You might have a piece of hard, unleavened bread, perhaps a day or two old. So tough it requires real effort to chew, soaking it in the hot gruel to soften it. This bread, often made from rye or barley, is dark, dense, and full of grit from the crude milling process. It's not the light, airy bread of modern bakeries. It's a brick of sustenance, designed to fill and to last. You are grateful for every bite, for the brief reprieve it offers from the gnawing emptiness. As you eat, you consider the preciousness of water. The journey to the well or stream is not merely a chore, but a daily risk. The water, drawn from the earth or flowing from an open source, is never truly clean. You've seen, firsthand, the consequences of bad water, the agonizing gripes of dysentery, the fevered bodies, the life slowly draining away. Boiling helps, of course, but it's not always enough, and not always practical for all water needs. Every sip is a calculated gamble, a concession to a brutal reality where unseen threats lurk in the very source of life. You've learned to accept the cloudy appearance, the occasional debris, the faint earthy taste. It is what it is, and you drink it. Because the alternative is far worse after the meager breakfast. There's no lingering, no savoring a second cup of anything. Your body, now marginally fueled, craves rest, but the day's work has already begun in your mind. The sun will soon breach the horizon, and every moment of daylight is a precious, finite resource that must be exploited to its fullest. Your tools, crude and heavy, await you in the field. Your labor is not merely a means of earning a living. It is a direct exchange of your physical energy for the calories you just consumed. You are a human engine, powered by gruel and driven by the stark necessity of survival. The cycle of hunger, labor, and fleeting sustenance is a relentless, inescapable rhythm that defines your very existence. As you step out of the hovel, the rising sun painting the eastern sky in hues of grey and pale pink, you take a deep breath. The air, though cold, is cleaner than the smoke-filled interior. You feel the faint stretch of your muscles, the stiffness beginning to ease. The weight of the wooden bucket, empty now, feels lighter, but the weight of the day ahead is already pressing upon your shoulders. You glance back at your family, gathered briefly at the hovel's entrance, their faces mirroring your own resolve. You nod to your wife, a silent acknowledgement of the shared burden, the unspoken promise to return. The hunger, though temporarily appeased, will return. The toil, though momentarily paused, awaits. And you, a medieval peasant, must once again face the world, armed with little more than your own 2 hands and an indomitable will to endure. The walk to the fields is not a stroll. It is a pilgrimage of duty, a daily trek across uneven ground, often churned into thick, tenacious mud by recent rains, or hardened into unforgiving ruts by winter's frost. Your feet, poorly shod or perhaps bare and calloused, sink into the mire with each step, the cold, wet earth clinging to your skin, threatening to pull you deeper. If it's a dry day, the ground is hard, studded with sharp stones and tangled roots that trip and bruise. The distance is rarely short. Your small plot of land, part of the communal fields, might be a good half-hour's walk from your hovel, and that time is already cutting into the precious hours of daylight. You carry your tools, a heavy wooden hoe with a crudely forged iron head, perhaps a rudimentary spade, or a long, cumbersome ploughshare. These are not ergonomic instruments of modern agriculture. They are brutal extensions of your own body, designed for pure brute force, not efficiency or comfort. As you reach the open fields, The sheer vastness of the cultivated land stretches before you, an undulating tapestry of brown earth, green shoots or golden stalks, depending on the season. It is a landscape shaped entirely by human hands, by generations of peasants like yourself, and it demands constant, unyielding attention. You survey your allotted strips, rarely contiguous, often scattered across the manor's open fields. This fragmentation, a legacy of the open field system, means more walking, more wasted energy, but it is the way it has always been. You draw a deep breath, the cold air filling your lungs, and mentally prepare for the day's arduous labor. If it is plowing season, you harness your single, scrawny ox, if you are fortunate enough to own one, or perhaps you share one with a neighbor, or even use a horse provided by the Lord. But more often, you are the beast of burden. You hitch the heavy, wooden plow to your own shoulders, the rough harness chafing against your skin. The earth is your adversary, stubborn and unyielding. The plowshare, a blunt, heavy piece of iron, tears at the soil, slowly turning the sod, a task that requires immense strength and stamina. With each step, you push, you pull, you strain, your muscles screaming in protest. The furrows you create are rarely perfectly straight, often veering with the contours of the land or the sheer exhaustion that saps your strength. The rhythmic thud-drag scrape of the plow against the earth is the soundtrack to your morning. A monotonous, relentless beat, hour after hour. You walk behind that plow, your back aching, your arms burning, your feet sinking into the freshly turned earth. The sun beats down on your head, or the rain lashes at your face, chilling you to the bone. Your rough tunic becomes soaked with sweat, then with rain, then dry stiff and uncomfortable against your skin. The taste of dust, or mud, is perpetually in your mouth. You wipe the sweat from your brow with the back of your hand, leaving streaks of dirt across your face. There's no water break, no rest until midday, and even then, it's a brief, hurried affair. Your only companions are the silent, steadfast ox, if you have one, the birds circling overhead, and the endless expanse of the field. Sowing seeds is equally arduous. You walk up and down the furrows, your hand reaching into a coarse bag of precious grain slung over your shoulder. With a practiced, sweeping motion, you scatter the seeds, trying to ensure an even distribution, though much is lost to the wind, to the birds, to the whims of chance. Each seed represents a hope, a prayer for survival, a fragile promise of future sustenance. You are intimately aware of the value of each tiny kernel, understanding that too many scattered carelessly, too many eaten by pests, means a diminished harvest, and thus a hungrier winter. Weeding is a ceaseless battle. You spend countless hours bent double, your fingers tearing at the tenacious roots of weeds that compete with your precious crops. The sun beats down on your exposed neck, your back screams, your knees ache from kneeling on the unforgiving earth. Your fingernails are perpetually caked with dirt, your hands rough and scarred. It's a monotonous, endless task, but a vital one. Every weed that remains is a calorie stolen from your family's mouths. Harvesting is perhaps the most physically demanding time of all. With a short, curved sickle, you cut the ripe stalks of wheat, rye, or barley, bundle by laborious bundle. The golden fields, so beautiful from a distance, become a field of relentless, back-breaking work. You move slowly, methodically, under the blazing sun, your muscles protesting with every swing, every bend. The sharp stubble of the cut stalks scratches your legs, leaves tiny cuts on your arms. Your hands, already calloused and tough, develop new blisters, which burst and bleed, then harden again. The dust from the dry stalks gets into your eyes, your nose, your throat, making you cough and sneeze. The air is thick with the smell of dry straw and sweat. Then comes the binding of the sheaves, the stacking of the harvest, the hauling of the heavy bundles back to the threshing floor. This involves repeatedly lifting immense weights, your body strained to its absolute limits. The fear of dropping a bundle, of losing any part of the precious yield, drives you on, even when your strength is almost gone. You know that a bad harvest means not just hunger, but potentially starvation. A failed crop is a death sentence, or at least a winter of unimaginable suffering and debt to the Lord. You have seen it happen to others, and the memory drives a chilling fear deep into your gut. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in fiery hues, you finally straighten up, a groan escaping your lips. Your entire body aches, a deep, pervasive throbbing that seems to originate from your very bones. Your back is stiff, your shoulders heavy, your hands numb from the day's repetitive motions. You wipe the sweat and dirt from your brow, feeling the rough stubble of your beard against your palm. The day's light, your most valuable resource, is fading, signaling an end to the brutal demands of the field. You gather your tools, their weight now feeling almost unbearable, and begin the long, weary walk back to your hovel. Each step is an effort, each muscle fiber protesting. You pass other peasants, their faces mirroring your own exhaustion, their backs bent under the weight of their own burdens. There are no words, only shared glances of understanding, of shared suffering. The sounds of their heavy breathing, the quiet shuffling of their feet, are the only sounds in the fading light. Your mind, though weary, already turns to tomorrow. What will the weather bring? Will the Lord demand an extra day of labor on his fields? Will the bailiff come seeking the arrears on your rent? The earth, which gives you life, also demands an unrelenting payment in sweat, blood, and tears. It is a harsh master, and you, a medieval peasant, are forever bound to its unforgiving embrace, your existence a testament to raw, brutal endurance. The setting sun casts long, distorted shadows of your tired figure across the fields, a silhouette of tireless struggle against the immutable forces of nature and feudalism. Your life, you understand acutely, is not your own. You are a serf, a tenant, bound to the land and, by extension, to the Lord who owns it. This isn't just about paying rent. It's a comprehensive system of control, a web of obligations and restrictions that define your every movement, your every aspiration. As you toil in your small, fragmented strips of land, the shadow of the manor house, even if it's miles distant, looms large over your very existence. Its unseen walls enclose not just the Lord's hall, but the entirety of your world, an invisible, unyielding prison. The most tangible of these shackles is the rent you owe, not just in coin, which is scarce, but primarily in labor and in kind. You owe the Lord a portion of everything you produce. Imagine, after all the sweat and pain you poured into cultivating that small plot, after wrestling with the stubborn earth, after battling the weeds and the pests and the unpredictable weather, you must surrender a significant part of your harvest to a man who did none of the work. You watch, with a grim and resentful silence, as the Lord's bailiff or his men come to your threshing floor, tallying your yield, and then, with an air of unassailable authority, taking their master's share. It's always too much, always feels like a theft, but you dare not protest too loudly. To do so would be to invite swift, brutal retribution. The fear of your lord is a constant, cold knot in your stomach, a sharper pain than hunger. Beyond the agricultural tithes, there are the corvée duties, the forced labor on the Lord's domain, his own land. You are obligated to work a certain number of days each week on the Lord's fields, plowing, sowing, harvesting his crops. Often at the busiest times of the year, when your own fields cry out for your attention. Imagine the frustration, the desperate urgency of watching your own crops suffer from neglect, knowing that every moment spent on the Lord's land is a moment stolen from your family's survival. You work harder on the Lord's land, not out of loyalty or diligence, but out of fear. The bailiff, often mounted, often armed, rides amongst you, barking orders, quick to strike with a switch or a fist any who slacken their pace. You feel the burning resentment, the seething injustice, but you bury it deep, behind eyes that show only a dull obedience. Then there are the myriad fees, the banalities, as they are called, that further bleed you dry. You cannot grind your own grain. You must use the Lord's mill, paying a hefty portion of your precious flour for the privilege. You cannot bake your own bread in your hovel. You must use the Lord's oven, again, for a fee. If you need a tool sharpened or a plowshare repaired, you must use the Lord's forge. Each of these necessary services comes at a cost, eroding your already meager resources, further binding you to the manorial system. You are caught in a web of financial obligations, a system designed to extract every last bit of value from your labor. You are never truly free from debt, always scrambling, always just barely making ends meet, and often falling short. The most profound restriction, perhaps, is the lack of freedom of movement. You are tied to the land. You cannot leave the manor without the Lord's permission, and even then, it is rarely granted and usually comes with a substantial fee. Imagine the crushing realization that the horizon, which seems so distant and promising, is in fact a boundary you can never cross. Your world is circumscribed by the manor's borders, your future dictated by its soil. Your children, too, are born into this same servitude, inheriting your status, your obligations, your lack of liberty. There is no escaping this cycle, no upward mobility, no chance to seek a better life elsewhere. Your destiny is fixed, predetermined by the circumstances of your birth. Justice, too, flows from the Lord. Should there be a dispute amongst villagers, a petty theft, or a breach of manor custom, it is the Lord's court that dispenses judgment, often through his steward or bailiff. There is no independent legal system to protect your rights, because you have few rights to begin with. The Lord's word is law, his decisions often arbitrary, swayed by personal bias or the need to maintain order and extract fines. You learn quickly to stay out of trouble, to avoid anything that might draw the Lord's attention, for his justice is often harsh and always serves his interests first. Fines are common, often paid in sheep or chickens, or sacks of grain, precious assets that further deplete your family's store. The feudal lord, for his part, offers you protection. He is theoretically responsible for defending you from raiders, from bandits, from other lords. But this protection often feels illusory. You are the shield, the cannon fodder, when wars come. Your village might be plundered by an enemy army just as easily as by your own lord's men seeking supplies. The protection you receive often feels like a thinly veiled justification for your enslavement, a convenient rationale for a system that benefits the few at the expense of the many. Every interaction, Every decision, every moment of your day is colored by this pervasive sense of dependence, of limited agency. You are a cog in a vast, unchanging machine, your individual desires and ambitions meaningless against the immutable structure of feudalism. You may dream of a different life, of owning your own land, of being truly free. But these dreams are quickly crushed under the weight of daily reality. The constant, grinding pressure of the mana system shapes your very soul, fostering a deep-seated stoicism, a quiet resilience born of necessity. You learn to accept your lot, to find small pockets of joy where you can, and to never, ever openly defy the power that holds your life in its hands. The shackles of the mana are not made of iron, but they are stronger than any metal, forged from tradition, law, and the stark reality of power. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long bruised shadows across the fields, you begin your weary journey back to your hovel. The thought of its simple shelter, however crude, offers a sliver of comfort, a promise of escape from the biting wind or the endless rain, from the prying eyes of the bailiff, and from the brutal demands of the earth. But this home is far from the sanctuary you might imagine. It is a testament to raw necessity and sparse resources, a constant reminder of your place in the world. Your hovel is a small, low-slung structure, perhaps no more than 10 feet by 15 feet, its walls crafted from wattle and daub, a lattice of interwoven branches and twigs, plastered over with a mixture of clay, mud, and straw. This provides some insulation, but it is far from airtight. You can often feel the drafts, insidious fingers of cold air creeping through the cracks, especially in winter. The roof is a thick layer of thatch, dried reeds or straw, laboriously gathered and carefully laid to shed water. It keeps out most of the rain, most of the time, but after a prolonged downpour, you often find slow drips making their way through, creating small puddles on the earth floor. The floor itself is simply packed earth, uneven and perpetually cold and damp, a constant source of chill that rises into your bones. Stepping inside, you are immediately enveloped in the familiar, pervasive smell of smoke. The hearth, the heart of your home, burns almost constantly, but the smoke hole in the thatch roof is crude and inefficient. Much of the smoke from the cooking fire and the burning logs lingers inside, stinging your eyes, irritating your throat, and coating every surface with a fine layer of soot. Your clothes, your hair, the very fabric of your skin, all carry this scent, a perpetual reminder of your dwelling. Your eyes, always watering a little, are often bloodshot from the constant exposure. Your lungs, too, bear the burden, accustomed to the irritating fumes that are a permanent fixture of your indoor life. There are no windows, or perhaps just a single, small opening, left unglazed and often stuffed with a piece of hide or cloth against the cold. This means that even during the day, your hovel is perpetually dim, illuminated only by the flicker of the hearth fire or the anemic light filtering through the smoke hole. At night, once the door, a rough slab of wood, is barred against the elements and any potential intruders, the darkness within is absolute, broken only by the dancing flames of the fire. Shadows stretch and contort across the rough walls, making familiar objects seem monstrous, creating a sense of both confinement and isolation. The furnishings are sparse, brutally functional. There's the low, shared straw bed you woke up in, perhaps a rough-hewn wooden chest for your few precious belongings, a spare tunic, a few tools, a small store of grain, a rickety table, perhaps a few stools, complete the inventory. There are no decorative objects, no art, no comforts beyond the most basic. Every item serves a purpose, and any unnecessary possession is a luxury you cannot afford, a burden to acquire and maintain. Your hovel is also shared, not just with your family, but often with your livestock. A pig might share a corner, a few chickens roost in the rafters, providing warmth and a degree of security against predators. Their presence adds to the cacophony of smells, the earthy odor of the animals mingling with the smoke, the damp and the distinct aroma of unwashed bodies. You are accustomed to their rustling, their grunts, their clucks. They are part of the daily tapestry of your life, a living extension of your family's resources. Their body heat, meager though it might be, is a welcome addition to the hovel's warmth in the colder months. The struggle for cleanliness is a constant, losing battle. Water is precious, often carried from a distant well or stream, and used sparingly for drinking and cooking. Personal hygiene is minimal. A full bath is a rare event, perhaps once a season if you are lucky, and likely in a cold stream or a wooden tub filled with laboriously heated water. You wash your hands, your face, but the deep grime of the fields, the soot from the fire, the everyday sweat and dirt cling to you, becoming a second skin. Your rough clothes are washed even less frequently, worn until they are stiff with dirt and almost falling apart. The lack of sanitation means that fleas, lice, and other parasites are a constant irritation, a persistent itch that you learn to live with, like so many other discomforts. Yet, despite all its harshness, this hovel is your refuge. It is the one place where you can escape the direct gaze of the Lord's bailiff, where you can share a moment of quiet with your family around the fire, where you can rest your aching body. It is a haven from the biting winds, the drenching rains, the winter snows. The warmth of the fire, however smoky, is a precious commodity, a central point around which your family gathers, telling stories, mending tools, or simply sitting in exhausted silence. The crackle of the flames, the low murmur of your wife's voice as she spins wool, the soft breathing of your children, these are the sounds of home, a brief respite from the relentless toil outside as night deepens. You bar the rough wooden door, securing your small world against the vast, dark, and often dangerous outside. The sounds of the night, the hoot of an owl, the distant howl of a wolf, the rustling of wind through the thatch are muffled but still present, a constant reminder of the untamed wilderness that surrounds your small human settlement. You settle onto your straw bed, pulling the rough blanket over you, grateful for the relative warmth of your shared space. Your muscles ache, your eyes sting, and the taste of smoke is still in your mouth. But for a few short hours, you are safe, you are warm, and you are home. It is a precarious existence, this life within your Waterland-daub walls, but it is yours, and for that you endure. The hovel, a smoky, draughty earthen shell, is simultaneously a source of endless irritation and a desperately needed sanctuary in a brutal, unforgiving world. Imagine a life where your most valuable asset, your very engine of survival, is your body, yet it is constantly breaking down with little hope of repair. This is the brutal reality of health for a medieval peasant. Your body, perpetually strained by relentless labor, undernourished and exposed to the elements, is a fragile vessel constantly under siege. Sickness isn't just an inconvenience, it's a terrifying, potentially fatal threat, a betrayal of your very means of existence. Hygiene, as you understand it, is a luxury. The concept of germ theory is centuries away, and even basic sanitation is an unknown. You live in close quarters with your family and animals, on a dirt floor, surrounded by smoke and the remnants of daily life. The communal well or stream, while a source of water, is also often contaminated by human and animal waste. You drink this water, you cook with it, and your body pays the price. Dysentery, a violent and dehydrating intestinal illness, is a common and terrifying killer, especially among the young and the old. You have seen children waste away in days, their small bodies racked by fever and cramps, their eyes dimming with a speed that still chills you to the bone. Fevers are rampant, often unexplained, stealing strength and leaving you weak and vulnerable. The ague or malaria is a persistent threat in marshy areas, its cyclical chills and sweats reducing healthy adults to shivering wrecks. Smallpox, its telltale pustules, a grim herald, sweeps through villages with devastating regularity, leaving behind pockmarked survivors or empty places at the communal table. Measles, diphtheria, tuberculosis, these are not distant threats from history books. They are present, tangible specters that haunt every hovel, every family. You know them by their symptoms, by the fear they inspire, by the faces of those they have taken. When sickness strikes, there is little to be done. There are no doctors in your village, no pharmacists, no hospitals. Your medical knowledge is limited to folk remedies passed down through generations, herbal concoctions, poultices of mud or dung, incantations, or desperate prayers to saints. Some remedies might offer temporary relief, some are useless, and some are actively harmful. You accept that much of illness is simply fate, God's will, or the result of ill humors within the body. You rely on the wisdom of the village elder, perhaps a woman known for her knowledge of herbs, but her power is limited. You watch, helpless, as loved ones suffer, and often you mourn their passing. Infant mortality is horrifically high. You have seen too many of your own children, and those of your neighbors, fail to reach their first birthday. Their small bodies, so vulnerable to disease and malnutrition, often succumb to fevers, coughs, or the vague wasting sickness. The grief is profound, a deep scar on your soul, but it is also a commonality, a shared sorrow that binds the community. You learn to steel yourself, to love fiercely but to hold a quiet, ever-present fear in your heart for the fragile lives of your remaining children. Each sunrise they greet is a small victory against overwhelming odds, beyond acute illnesses. Your body endures a constant symphony of aches and pains. Your back, perpetually bent over the plough or the hoe, throbs with a dull, persistent ache. Your hands are a mass of calluses, scars, and ingrained dirt, often stiff and painful, especially in the cold. Your joints creak and protest with every movement, years of repetitive, heavy labor taking their toll. You wake up with new pains every morning, and fall asleep with old ones throbbing in your limbs. There is no such thing as a day off for a medieval peasant. You work through the pain, because to stop means to starve. You learn to ignore the discomfort, to push past the signals your body sends, until a small ache becomes a debilitating injury, a sprained ankle, a broken bone, a deep cut from a tool. These are not minor inconveniences. Without proper care, they can become infected, festering wounds that lead to fevers, gangrene, and often death. A serious injury can mean you are unable to work, rendering your family destitute, forcing them to rely on the charity of the village or face eviction from their land. The fear of injury is almost as potent as the fear of disease, for it strikes at the very core of your ability to provide and survive. You are constantly aware of your body's fragility, the thin line between health and complete debilitation. Your teeth, too, are a source of constant low-level pain. Without modern dentistry, they decay, crack, and fall out, often causing agonizing toothaches and infections that spread to your jaw. You learn to chew on one side, to avoid certain foods, to simply live with the discomfort. Life expectancy is short, perhaps 35 to 40 years if you are lucky, but these years are packed with a level of suffering that would be unimaginable to you in your modern world. As you reflect on the constant threat of illness and injury, you can't help but feel a chilling empathy for these people. You may take for granted your access to clean water, to doctors, to medicine, to the simple comfort of a pain reliever. For the medieval peasant, every day was a triumph over an unseen enemy, a battle against a body that often felt like it was betraying them. The strength of their spirit, the sheer resilience required to face such pervasive suffering with quiet determination, is a testament to the enduring human will to survive, even when every fiber of their being is screaming in protest. Your body, your most vital tool, is also your greatest vulnerability, a constant source of fear and potential suffering. While your daily life is characterized by relentless toil and profound isolation in the fields, your existence is also deeply interwoven with the fabric of your village. You are not alone. You are a thread in a complex, often frayed, tapestry of human connection. This village, a cluster of hovels like your own, a church, perhaps a mill and a smithy, is your entire world, your social universe. It is a place of shared struggle, mutual support, and, inevitably, petty squabbles and deep-seated grudges. The church stands as the undeniable spiritual and social heart of the village. Its rough stone walls, perhaps slightly grander than any other building, offer a sense of permanence in a world of impermanence. On Sunday, you and your family, along with every other villager, gather for Mass. The priest, often as uneducated as you are, but invested with divine authority, delivers sermons in Latin, a language you don't fully understand, but the rituals are familiar. The blessing, the communion, the prayers for a good harvest, for protection from plague. The church is a place of comfort, a space to acknowledge the overwhelming power of God in a world where human agency often feels so limited. It is also a rare opportunity to gather, to see neighbors, to exchange news and gossip before and after the service. The tolling of the church bell marks the hours, regulating your day, calling you to prayer, or warning of danger. Market days, if your village is large enough to host one, or if you can spare the time to journey to a nearby town, are a rare burst of activity. Imagine the sheer sensory overload, the jostle of bodies, the cacophony of voices haggling over prices, the lowing of animals, the unfamiliar sense of spices and crafts brought from distant lands, or at least from the next manor over. You might bring a few eggs, a chicken, or a small surplus of vegetables to trade for a precious iron tool, a piece of salt, or a length of rough fabric. It is a time for social interaction, for catching up with relatives from neighboring hamlets, for hearing news from the wider world, tales of distant wars, of wonders, of the king's court, all filtering down through the merchant class, often distorted and exaggerated. These moments are brief, but they offer a vital connection to something beyond your immediate, arduous existence. Within the village, life is lived openly. There is little privacy in your small hovel, and even less in the communal spaces. Everyone knows everyone else's business, who is struggling, who has a new baby, who is ill, who is feuding with whom. Gossip is a powerful social currency, a means of enforcing norms and reinforcing community bonds, but also a source of friction. You know who the lazy farmer is, whose wife is sharp-tongued, whose children are ill-behaved. These observations are not malicious, not always. They are simply the shared knowledge of a tightly knit community where survival depends on collective effort. Cooperation is vital. When a neighbor's barn collapses or a family is struck by illness, the community often rallies. You might offer a few days of labor, share some of your meager food, or help mend a roof. This mutual aid is not charity in the modern sense. It is a pragmatic necessity. You know that one day you too might need such help, and the unwritten social contract of reciprocal assistance ensures survival for all. The communal spirit, forged in the crucible of shared hardship, is a powerful, binding force. You might work together on communal tasks, like repairing a bridge or digging a ditch, sharing the load. A sense of camaraderie briefly eclipsing the daily struggle, yet conflict is never far beneath the surface. Scarcity breeds resentment. A boundary dispute over a tiny strip of land, a stray animal wandering into a neighbor's garden, an accusation of theft, a perceived slight, these can escalate into bitter, long-running feuds that divide families and disrupt the peace of the village. These conflicts are often resolved by the village elder or, failing that, brought before the Lord's court, where arbitrary justice is meted out in the form of fines or public shaming. You learn to navigate these social waters carefully, to avoid unnecessary antagonisms, but also to stand your ground when your family's honor or livelihood is at stake. Feast days, though rare, are eagerly anticipated. These might be religious festivals, or perhaps a celebration after a good harvest. On such occasions, the Lord might provide a special meal, or villagers pool their resources for a rare treat, perhaps a roasted pig, a bit of ale, or some simple entertainment from a traveling minstrel. These moments of collective joy, however fleeting, are intensely cherished, providing a vital psychological release from the constant grind. You laugh, you sing, you dance with a rare abandon, momentarily forgetting the ache in your muscles and the hunger in your belly. These communal celebrations are a testament to the enduring human need for connection and shared experience. Even in the harshest of circumstances, you are acutely aware of your place in this social hierarchy. You are a peasant, a serf, at the bottom of the ladder, your fate largely determined by the Lord above you. But within the village itself, there are also subtle distinctions. The wealthier peasants with more land or an ox, the village smith, the miller, the reeve, the peasant chosen to represent the village to the Lord. You respect those above you and expect respect from those below. It's a complex web of deference and interaction, all within the confines of your small, unchanging world. As you consider the village web, you realize how fundamentally different your social experience is from that of a medieval peasant. You have access to a vast global network of connections, but perhaps lack the intense, intimate bonds forged in the crucible of shared daily struggle. The medieval peasant, for all their isolation in the broader world, lived a life deeply embedded in a community, where every face was known, every story heard, and mutual survival was an unwritten, yet constantly reinforced, law. Your life is an intricate dance between the solitary, grueling demands of the earth and the complex, often challenging, but ultimately vital, embrace of your village as the sun begins its final, glorious descent painting the western sky in hues of orange, purple, and fiery red, you finally straighten your aching back in the field. The last sliver of daylight, so precious, is quickly fading, and with it, the relentless demand for your labor. A deep, guttural sigh escapes your lips, a sound of profound exhaustion and, perhaps, a whisper of relief. The air, which might have been oppressively hot or bitterly cold hours ago, now settles into a cool, damp stillness. The shadows lengthen dramatically, stretching across the furrows you've tirelessly ploughed, the crops you've painstakingly tended, until your own tired figure becomes a long, distorted silhouette against the fading light. You gather your tools, the heavy hoe, the crude sickle, their weight now feeling almost unbearable in your numb hands. Each muscle in your body screams in protest, a symphony of aches and throbs. Your shoulders are stiff, your lower back a knot of pain, your feet blistered and sore. The sheer physical depletion is so complete that it dulls all other senses, reducing your world to the immediate, agonizing reality of your weary body. You walk slowly, deliberately, towards the path that leads back to your hovel, each step an act of sheer will. The mud, if it's been wet, now feels heavier, clinging to your feet. If it's dry, the dust kicks up, a faint, irritating cloud around your legs. The journey home is not a quiet one, even if you speak no words. You pass other peasants, their figures stooped with the same exhaustion, their faces grim and set. There are no greetings, no casual conversations, only shared glances of profound understanding, of common suffering, of a daily battle fought and survived. The only sounds are the rhythmic scuffing of feet on the earth, the occasional cough, the lowing of a cow being led home, the distant bleating of sheep. It's a somber procession, a daily ritual of returning from the front lines of subsistence. Your mind, though tired, begins its inventory. What still needs doing tomorrow? Is the grain store holding up? Will the weather turn? The anxieties of survival are never fully extinguished, even by the deepest exhaustion. Finally, you reach your hovel. The rough wooden door, which seems so welcoming in the morning's gloom, now appears a mere barrier against the encroaching darkness. Inside, your wife has managed to keep the fire going, a small, flickering beacon of warmth and light. The air is still smoky, but it's a familiar, comforting presence. Your children are already inside, perhaps huddled near the hearth, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. Their eager eyes, however, betray their own hunger, their own anticipation of the evening meal. The evening meal is another meagre affair, a repetition of the morning's gruel, perhaps with a few wild herbs or a precious onion if you were lucky enough to forage or grow them. Or perhaps it's just a chunk of stale bread soaked in water to make it palatable. You eat in relative silence, the sounds of chewing and swallowing the only breaks in the quiet. Every bite is savored, every morsel appreciated for the brief energy it provides. The food is gone quickly, disappearing into stomachs that are never truly full, only temporarily appeased. After the meal, there is little energy for leisure. Your body demands rest, but chores still call. Your wife might mend a torn tunic by the flickering firelight, her fingers nimble despite the fatigue. You might sharpen a dull tool, preparing. For tomorrow's work, the clink-scrape of metal on stone, a low, rhythmic sound. Perhaps, if there is a lull, if the day's work has been slightly less crushing, you might tell a simple story to your children, a folk tale of ancient heroes or mischievous spirits, passed down through generations. Your voice, hoarse from the cold, and the dust softens as you speak, weaving a brief spell of magic and escape in the dim, smoky hovel. These moments are rare and cherished, precious pockets of humanity amidst the relentless grind. As the darkness outside deepens, becoming absolute, a different set of fears begins to emerge. There are no streetlights here, no security systems. The night is a vast, dangerous expanse. The distant howl of a wolf can send a shiver down your spine, a reminder of predators that roam the forests. The rustling of rats in the thatch roof, the creaking of timbers in the wind, all contribute to a sense of vulnerability. You check the wooden bar on the door, ensuring it is secure, a meager defense against the unseen dangers of the wilderness and the occasional human bandit. The thought of tomorrow hangs heavy in the air. Another sunrise, another day of brutal labor. There is no escape from this cycle, no concept of retirement, no weekend. Your life is a continuous, unbroken chain of toil, broken only by the brief respite of sleep. You yearn for that sleep, for the temporary oblivion it offers, the chance for your aching muscles to recover. Yet, even in sleep, there is no true peace. Your body is accustomed to constant discomfort, and dreams are often fleeting, broken by coughs, by the cries of a restless child, or by the persistent gnawing of hunger in your belly. You settle onto your straw bed, pulling the rough blanket over you and your family. The warmth of shared bodies is a small comfort against the persistent chill. You offer a simple prayer to God, a silent plea for protection, for a bountiful harvest next year, for the health of your family. You close your eyes, the last image. In your mind, the flickering embers of the fire, slowly dying down, preparing for the morning's rekindling. The silence is profound, broken only by the soft breathing of your loved ones and the sounds of the night. You are a small, fragile point of warmth and life in a vast, cold, and often hostile world. The setting sun promises the oblivion of sleep, but also the inevitable, relentless dawn of another day, another battle for survival. As the last embers of the fire reluctantly surrender to the night, casting only faint orange whispers on the packed earth floor, you finally prepare for sleep. There's no ritual here, no elaborate bedtime routine. It's a surrender to exhaustion, a collapsing into the brief, precious oblivion that will hopefully rejuvenate your battered body for the dawn. You lie down on the shared straw bed, its rough texture a familiar annoyance against your skin. The scent of stale smoke, damp earth, and human bodies is thick, inescapable, but it's the smell of home, the smell of survival. You arrange yourself amongst your wife and children, huddling close. This isn't just for comfort, it's a vital source of warmth. In the cold, unheated hovel, the combined body heat of your family is your primary defense against the biting chill that seeps in through the walls and rises from the earth floor. You feel the small, fragile bodies of your children pressed against you, their warmth a paradoxically comforting reminder of your constant anxiety for their survival. You hear their soft, rhythmic breathing, a fragile cadence that fills the profound darkness. The night is not truly silent. The wind, if it's blowing, whistles through the cracks in the wattle and daub, a mournful, haunting sound. The thatch roof creaks and rustles, making tiny, unpredictable noises that can set your nerves on edge. Outside, you might hear the distant howl of a wolf, a sound that sends a primal shiver down your spine, a reminder of the wild, untamed world that lies just beyond your flimsy walls. Closer still, you might hear the rustling of rats in the thatch, or the soft grunts of the pig sharing your hovel, their presence a constant low-level irritation. a compromise you accept for the warmth they offer and their ultimate value as food. Your mind, though weary, often refuses to immediately shut down. You might replay the day's tasks, mentally reviewing what was accomplished and what still awaits. You might worry about the harvest, about the Lord's demands, about the lingering cough that your youngest child seems to have developed. These anxieties are your constant companions, refusing to release their grip even in the quiet of the night. The concept of a worry-free mind is as alien to you as the notion of a hot bath. You turn on your side, trying to find a position that eases the ache in your back, the stiffness in your shoulders, the persistent throb in your hands. Every joint protests, every muscle feels stretched and abused. There's no soft mattress, no springy support, only the yielding, but ultimately unsupportive, straw. You shift again, attempting to find that elusive sweet spot of temporary relief, but it rarely lasts. The discomfort is a permanent fixture, an ingrained part of your physical being. Sleep, when it finally comes, is rarely deep or unbroken. It's a fitful, punctuated affair. The cold can wake you, seeping into your bones despite the shared warmth. The cries of a restless child, hungry or uncomfortable, demand your attention. The need to relieve yourself, a hurried trip outside into the biting night, is a frequent disruption. Each interruption steals precious moments of rest, further diminishing your capacity for the demanding day ahead. You learn to fall back asleep quickly, a skill born of utter exhaustion, a necessity for survival. In the brief fleeting moments before true sleep claims you, you might allow yourself to dream, not of grand adventures or impossible riches, but of simpler, more fundamental comforts. You might dream of a full belly, a meal without hunger pangs. You might dream of a day without pain, a body that doesn't ache from dawn till dusk. Perhaps you even dream of owning your own patch of land, free from the Lord's demands, a radical, almost heretical thought that you quickly push away. These are dangerous dreams, for they only highlight the stark, unyielding reality of your existence. You might utter a final, simple prayer into the darkness, a plea to whatever divine power might be listening for a slightly better tomorrow, for the health of your family, for a good harvest. It's a quiet, desperate hope, a tiny flicker of defiance against the overwhelming forces that govern your life. The act of prayer is a moment of vulnerability, an acknowledgement of your helplessness in the face of so much that is beyond your control. As you finally drift into the shallow depths of sleep, your consciousness recedes, leaving behind the immediate physical discomforts. The sounds of the night, the cold, the hunger, they all fade, replaced by a temporary void. Your mind, though it aches to forget, will likely carry the echoes of the day into your dreams, a subconscious processing of the relentless struggle. But for now, for a few short, precious hours, you are at peace. Your body, though battered and worn, is finally at rest. The sleep of the medieval peasant is not a luxury. It is a vital, non-negotiable requirement, the only true escape from a life of constant, brutal toil. It is a necessary death each night, allowing for a fragile rebirth each dawn, ready to face the relentless world anew. And so, as the virtual light dims on your journey back through time, let the stillness settle around you. You've walked in the footsteps of a medieval peasant, felt the cold earth, tasted the meager gruel, endured the relentless aches, and lived under the shadow of a feudal lord. You've experienced, however briefly and imperfectly, a life where every sunrise was a battle and every sunset a hard-won victory for survival. Contrast that visceral reality with your soft bed, the quiet hum of your appliances, the certainty of your next meal, the warmth of your home. The life you just explored was not a tale of heroic quests or courtly love. It was a story of raw, unvarnished endurance, of a human spirit pushed to its absolute limits, day after grinding day. Take a moment to truly appreciate the extraordinary comforts and freedoms you possess. Luxuries built upon centuries of progress, much of it emerging from the struggles of those very peasants. Next time you feel a chill, or a pang of hunger, or an ache in your back, remember the life we just shared. Until our next journey back in time, sleep well and cherish the quiet comforts surrounding you.